High above the sun-washed beauty of Miami, Richard Davenport commanded a hotel empire. His penthouse suite reflected this success. Vast windows showcased stunning ocean views. Surfaces gleamed under carefully curated light. Yet, despite the calculated luxury, the space felt strangely impersonal, almost untouched. The air conditioning kept a persistent coolness, a stark contrast to the vibrant heat outside, mirroring the chill that had settled deep within Richard himself. An unnerving quiet seemed to absorb all sound, a silence centered around his young daughter, Lily. She lived in a world without words, lost somewhere his immense fortune couldn't reach. What happens when someone steps into such a contradiction, carrying not status or wealth but simple honest kindness? Does that disconnect feel familiar? Maybe you've known someone who projects strength and control, while inside they feel adrift, cut off from what matters most. Have you ever seen a person struggling to connect with a child lost in their own private world, the helplessness that comes with it? Or have you witnessed how genuine, patient attention can start to repair connections that seemed permanently damaged? How do we find our way back to each other after loss builds barriers between hearts? This is the story of Richard Davenport, a man brilliant in the mechanics of business, but lost when it came to navigating the landscape of his own heart, isolated by unresolved grief. It's the story of 7-year-old Lily, who retreated into profound silence after the trauma of losing her mother, her bright spark nearly extinguished. And it's the story of Maria's arrival. She didn't come armed with therapeutic credentials. She was a caregiver whose deep, intuitive understanding was forged through years of unwavering devotion to her own brother, learning firsthand about patience, empathy, and the profound meaning found in celebrating the smallest steps forward. How does this kind of intuitive care manage to reach a child when conventional methods haven't worked? Can two people, both marked by past sorrows, find common ground and help each other heal through their concern for Lily? Will a father preoccupied with balance sheets learn to recognize the true value of presence before more time slips away? Stick with us to see how gentle moments, a cleverly designed spoon that lights up, a patient art session, a shared quiet understanding, begin to warm a guarded heart and coax a little girl toward the world again. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told and want to see more tales of hope and transformation, please consider subscribing to Remarkable Stories so you don't miss what happens next. Miami awakens in early summer, a vivid burst of sound and color. Turquoise waves meet sandy shores. Pastel buildings shimmer under a persistent sun. Palms sway against an intensely blue sky. Life pulses here. Yet, paradoxically, Richard Davenport existed in a world apart, muted and cold within this vibrancy. High above South Beach, his penthouse crowned the flagship hotel he'd built. It was a testament to his success, a space filled with expensive art, cutting-edge technology, and views stretching across the vast Atlantic. From this height, he commanded the Davenport Hospitality Group, an empire grown from a single inn to a collection of iconic hotels defining Miami luxury. His name meant impeccable service, unquestioned success. But the polished exterior Richard presented was a carefully constructed facade. Inside, he navigated a profound emptiness no amount of profit could touch. The penthouse, meant to be his refuge, often felt like a meticulously designed cage. Sunlight might stream through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air, but it offered no warmth against the chill that seemed embedded in the marble floors and glass walls, a chill emanating from Richard himself. He'd watch the sunrise explode with color over the ocean, yet feel nothing stir within him. The silence in the enormous rooms wasn't just quiet. It was heavy, almost pressurizing, swallowing sounds and emphasizing the stark absence of laughter or conversation. It was a constant, tangible reminder of everything missing from his life. And at the very core of this guarded existence, this landscape of quiet despair, was his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Life had dealt her a difficult start with a traumatic brain injury at birth. Even so, she had been a bright toddler. Her first words, "Mama," "Dada," spoken with cheerful confidence. Then came the accident 2 years ago that stole her mother, Elena, instantly shattering their world. In the disorienting time that followed, something fundamental shifted in Lily. The expressive light in her young eyes dimmed, replaced by a distant, sometimes wary look. The words she knew vanished completely. She now moved through her days enveloped in silence, her small body often tense, her communication reduced to fleeting glances or a slight flinch away from an unexpected touch. Her inner world remained locked away. Richard's grief was a raw, relentless thing, vast and consuming like the ocean he overlooked. Losing Elena felt like losing the very anchor of his world, and it severed the already delicate connection with his daughter. His response, his only known way to cope, was retreat, into work. He poured his energy into expansions, deals, the intricate machinery of his business, perhaps unconsciously hoping achievement could substitute for connection, or somehow pave over the chasm of loss. But the more the company succeeded, the more disconnected he became from the small, silent girl who needed him. The echoes of past laughter were ghosts in the quiet rooms. He'd find himself watching Lily, seeing her withdrawn posture, the way she stared intently at nothing he could perceive, and a wave of utter powerlessness would wash over him, leaving him stuck, helpless in the face of her impenetrable silence. Into the hushed atmosphere of Richard Davenport's penthouse, heavy with unspoken grief, a potential change arrived quietly on a humid July morning. Richard's assistant, after weeks of searching for a live-in caregiver for Lily, another attempt to pierce the silence surrounding the child, had found someone different. Amidst the applications boasting professional accolades, one profile stood out not for credentials, but for an air of quiet, genuine warmth. Maria Vasquez. 30 years old, Maria arrived looking unassuming. Comfortable jeans, a simple cotton blouse, her dark hair loosely braided. There was a striking authenticity about her, a grounded calmness in her posture. But it was her eyes, shining with a deep, unspoken empathy, that truly set her apart from the polished candidates Richard had briefly met before. He registered her arrival. She felt different, somehow more real than the others. Her resume offered few clues to her suitability in a conventional sense. No degrees in special education, no list of therapeutic certifications. It mentioned 3 years as a barista in Coral Gables, a role suggesting an easy connection with everyday people. But the true source of her qualification wasn't listed under experience. It resided in her personal history, in the years she had dedicated to caring for her younger brother, Diego, who lived with Down syndrome. She had been his primary support, his constant companion through the complexities of his teenage years, right up until his quiet passing when he was just 16. That profound journey, undertaken out of love and unwavering responsibility, had forged her understanding of care far beyond what any textbook could teach. It taught her the immense power of patience, the necessity of profound empathy, and the quiet joy found in recognizing and celebrating the smallest victories. She learned that true care often meant listening to unspoken needs, understanding the language of gestures, or finding happiness in a fleeting smile after a long, difficult day. Lessons Diego had patiently taught her. So, as Maria Vasquez stepped out of the bright Miami heat and into the cool, imposing luxury of the Davenport penthouse that morning, she carried more than just her luggage. She carried the quiet strength, the deep empathy, and the patient understanding shaped by her years with Diego, an unspoken readiness to bring not just professional care, but perhaps a measure of warmth and human connection back into this beautiful cold home. The first few days unfolded quietly. Lily, from the safety of her silence, observed Maria with an intense, cautious curiosity. Her small body remained tense, her large green eyes tracking Maria's movements around the room, as if trying to decipher this new person's intentions. Maria, sensing the child's wariness, didn't push or crowd her. She moved gently, spoke softly, prepared the familiar comfort of blueberry oatmeal without expectation. Her presence was patient, calm, allowing Lily her space. Maria recognized, perhaps recalling lessons learned long ago with Diego, that connection doesn't always happen through words. Sometimes, especially for a child hesitant to engage, the senses offer a gentler pathway. She introduced a small, thoughtful tool, a specially modified spoon. It featured a handle weighted for an easier grip, a soft silicone tip, and held a little secret. When tilted, a soft light glowed gently from within. One sunny morning, at the low table where dappled light fell through the skylight, Maria showed it to Lily. "Watch this, Lily," she coaxed, her voice warm and playful, tilting the spoon so the light flickered. "See? Like the fireflies we might see at night." Lily's first reaction was to pull her hand back sharply from the unfamiliar object. Maria didn't react, simply continued her patient offering each day. Then, on the fourth morning, a subtle change occurred. As Maria gently offered the firefly spoon once more, Lily's small hand, usually held so stiffly, seemed to relax almost imperceptibly around the handle. It was a tiny yielding, a momentary pause in her constant guardedness. Slowly, carefully, Maria guided the spoon toward her lips. And then, it happened. A sound. A quiet, hesitant coo emerged from Lily's throat, soft, questioning, barely louder than a breath. It was the first voluntary sound, disconnected from distress, that Richard had heard from his daughter in 2 long years. He had been standing in the doorway, watching, perhaps bracing himself for the usual lack of response. The tiny sound was so faint, so fragile, he almost convinced himself he'd imagined it. But it was real. Hearing that whisper of sound from his utterly silent child sent a jolt through him, a complex, bittersweet wave. The sweetness of that tiny noise crashed against the bitterness of the vast silence it had broken. Hope, sharp and sudden, pierced through his carefully managed numbness. Could this gentle woman, with her creative sensory approach, actually be finding a way in? Could this fragile sound, this small miracle sparked by a glowing spoon, truly be the first step on the long road back to reaching his daughter's heart? As days turned into weeks, Maria's quiet influence began to subtly reshape the penthouse's sterile atmosphere, like warmth slowly seeping into a cold room. Recognizing Lily needed a space free from the imposing formality elsewhere, Maria dedicated herself to creating a haven within the playroom. She called it the Wonder Nook. Soft fabrics and gentle colors were draped to soften the sharp lines of the room, and strings of tiny fairy lights twinkled along the walls, casting a warm, magical glow that felt entirely different from the rest of the luxurious but unwelcoming home. This nook, cozy and inviting, became their dedicated space for connection. Each evening, Maria would settle with Lily on a low, comfortable rug within this gentle space. She'd read picture books aloud, her voice animated, full of expression, attempting to draw Lily into the story. When Lily's attention inevitably drifted, her gaze perhaps becoming distant or fixed on a point only she could see, Maria wouldn't push. Instead, she'd gently offer a tactile sticker, maybe one shaped like a seashell that, when touched, played a soft recording of ocean waves. It wasn't about forcing focus, but about offering a simple sensory anchor back to the present moment, an invitation rather than a demand. One particular rainy afternoon, with the sound of thunder murmuring softly outside, provided a chance for deeper connection. Maria set out simple art supplies in the Wonder Nook: pliable, non-toxic clays, watercolors in soft pastel shades, a few smooth, cool stones gathered from a beach walk. "Let's make our own world today, Lily," Maria suggested, her voice calm and encouraging. She gently guided Lily's hand towards the clay, letting her feel its texture. Lily's initial response was hesitation, her small fingers stiffening, a familiar pattern of withdrawal. But Maria remained patient, allowing Lily the time and space to explore without expectation. Slowly, tentatively, Lily began to interact with the clay, leaving small, shallow imprints, faint marks indicating her presence, her cautious exploration of this new sensation. As Lily worked in her quiet way, Maria carefully molded a small, graceful dolphin shape from her own piece of clay, setting it near Lily's efforts. Then came the shift. Lily, who had seemed absorbed in her own tentative actions, paused, her eyes focused on the dolphin. Then, deliberately, she reached out her small hand. Her fingers made gentle contact with the cool, smooth surface of the clay sculpture. It wasn't a fleeting brush. She held her touch for a moment, a clear sign of focused engagement, of recognition. Maria watched closely, noticing the slight softening around Lily's eyes. Perhaps, just perhaps, the very beginning of a smile. Richard, observing more often now, witnessed this interaction from nearby. Seeing his daughter consciously reach out, interact, respond to something offered, it struck him with unexpected force. That simple touch held more significance than any business deal. A powerful surge of hope, less bittersweet this time, rose within him. He thought of Elena, of her easy laughter, remembering the effortless joy they shared. Watching Maria and Lily now, seeing this tangible spark of connection ignited by simple clay and quiet patience, he allowed himself, truly allowed himself, to believe that maybe healing wasn't just a distant wish, but something actively beginning in his own home. Seeing that little spark of connection? If moments like this touch your heart, give this video a like to let us know. Even as these fragile connections began to appear like tentative sprouts in the cold soil of the penthouse, the path forward remained shadowed by past grief. Beneath the surface of gentle routines and small breakthroughs, both Richard and Maria navigated their own internal struggles. Richard found himself ambushed by waves of guilt. The demanding hours poured into his business, once a refuge, now felt like years stolen from Lily. He'd catch himself replaying memories, Elena's easy laugh echoing in the unnervingly quiet halls, Lily's toddler babble now replaced by silence, and the contrast was agonizing. Each tiny step forward Lily made with Maria brought a complex mix of relief, immediately followed by the sharp pang of, what if Elena could see this, reinforcing his sense of failure. Maria, too, wrestled with echoes from her past. Caring for Lily inevitably brought forth vivid memories of her beloved brother Diego, his specific challenges, his unique joys, and the profound ache left by his absence. Sometimes, a particular way Lily tilted her head, or a moment of frustration she couldn't voice, would transport Maria back, stirring the deep-seated fear of risking that kind of emotional investment again. Could she allow herself to fully connect, knowing the potential cost? This internal conflict sometimes led her to moments of quiet withdrawal, a need to shield her own heart, even as she dedicated herself to helping Lily emerge from her shell. Their shared, unspoken burdens hung in the air one particular evening. It had been a difficult day. Lily had seemed distant, perhaps overwhelmed, retreating into herself after a therapy session. Later, Richard and Maria found themselves in the vast living room, the dim lighting casting long shadows, the usual quiet feeling heavier than usual. Richard stared intently at a framed photo of Elena and a younger, smiling Lily, the image a portrait of a life that felt impossibly distant. His voice, when he finally broke the silence, was strained, the words forced out. "I'm scared," he admitted, the confession raw. "Scared this business. It's all I am now. What if I fail them? Lose you, lose her, like I lost Elena?" Maria didn't offer quick comfort. She simply sat with his admission for a moment, then reached out, perhaps resting her hand gently on his arm. "I know," she murmured, her voice soft but resonant with understanding. "I know that fear. Losing someone you love. It changes everything." Her eyes met his, holding a depth of shared experience. "But Richard," she continued quietly, her own past loss informing her words, "we can't let that fear wall us off forever. Every single moment with Lily, even the hard ones, is a chance to rebuild. And you deserve to let love back into your life. You deserve that chance, even if it feels terrifying right now." In the vulnerability of that exchange, something profound shifted. The carefully maintained distance between employer and caregiver dissolved, replaced by the raw, honest connection of two people who recognized the scars the other carried. They saw each other as survivors, navigating the treacherous landscape of grief. And in that shared understanding, rooted in their respective pains, the fragile beginnings of a deeper bond started to form. Not just proximity or shared concern, but a tentative affection built on empathy and seeing the wounded, hopeful person beneath the surface. Then came a humid, heavy September afternoon that would change everything. The fragile sense of progress, the tentative hope that had begun to lighten the penthouse air, was suddenly, terrifyingly fractured. In the middle of a routine feeding session, Lily's breathing abruptly became shallow, erratic. Her small chest hitched, color draining from her face. The visiting nurse, moments before calm and professional, let out a sharp cry, her movements becoming frantic, overwhelmed by the sudden medical emergency. Hearing the commotion, Richard rushed in, his blood running cold. Seeing Lily struggling for breath sent a jolt of pure terror through him, instantly transporting him back to the crushing helplessness he felt after losing Elena. His carefully constructed world tilted, the floor seeming unsteady beneath his feet as raw panic surged, mingled with a suffocating wave of guilt. But amidst the rising chaos, Maria became an island of focused calm. Kneeling beside Lily, her face determined, her movements precise and unhurried, she began speaking in a low, steady voice, reassuring Lily, giving clear, simple instructions to the panicked nurse, her presence a stark contrast to the fear swirling around them. Time seemed to distend, each second stretching into an agonizing eternity as they waited for Lily's breathing to stabilize. Richard stood frozen for a moment, then rushed forward, his usual control completely shattered. He reached for Lily's small, limp hand, gripping it tightly, as if his touch alone could keep her anchored to life. Tears blurred his vision as he watched the nurse work, his own breath catching in his throat, a desperate plea echoing silently within him. Finally, agonizingly, Lily's breathing began to even out. The immediate danger passed. The nurse, guided by Maria's steadiness, had stabilized her. But the event left an indelible mark. The sheer, visceral terror of almost losing Lily acted as a powerful catalyst within Richard. Later that night, alone in the penthouse, the sound of rain against the vast windows echoing the earlier turmoil, he couldn't escape his thoughts. He saw Elena's smile in his mind, felt the weight of promises made in the depths of grief. He saw Lily's utter fragility, and he saw Maria's quiet strength. The way she met crisis with calm competence. The way she had begun to gently chip away at his own defenses. The terror he'd felt wasn't just fear of loss. It was fear of failing again, of remaining closed off. In that solitary moment, confronting the depth of his fear, he made a conscious, definitive choice. He would stop hiding in his work, stop letting grief dictate his life. He resolved to fully embrace the terrifying, uncertain path of opening his heart again. To Lily, to Maria, to the possibility of love and genuine connection, no matter how much it scared him. The terrifying clarity brought by the crisis spurred a profound change in Richard. It wasn't instantaneous, but a deliberate, conscious shift. He began actively disengaging from the relentless pull of his business, delegating crucial meetings he once would have insisted on leading, choosing to stay home observing Lily's therapy sessions instead of rushing to the office. He started truly seeing the quiet patience Maria exercised, the small, determined flicker of response in Lily's eyes during their interactions. These moments, once invisible to him, now held a weight, a significance that no corporate balance sheet could match. Maria, drawing her own strength from navigating the crisis, seemed renewed too. The shadow of her past loss didn't disappear, but she found a quiet joy in Lily's incremental progress, a spontaneous noise that sounded almost like a giggle, a newly expressive brushstroke in a painting. Recognizing her own healing was intertwined with fostering connection. The distance Richard had maintained began to truly dissolve. He started joining Maria and Lily for the evening memory moments. Sitting together, perhaps on the floor of the Wonder Nook, they'd carefully turn the pages of old photo albums. Richard found himself tentatively sharing stories behind the snapshots, a funny anecdote about Eleanor on a beach trip, the context of a birthday celebration. Seeing these moments through Maria's gentle gaze, watching Lily trace a finger over a younger version of herself, chipped away at the armor around his heart, allowing him to acknowledge the warm, hesitant affection growing between him and Maria. One particularly beautiful evening, as twilight painted the Miami sky in soft hues of orange and purple, Richard led them to the hotel's rooftop garden. He'd arranged for it to be their private sanctuary. Fragrant orchids bloomed in the fading light, lanterns cast a warm, intimate glow, and soft blankets lay invitingly on the stone floor, still warm from the day's sun. Lily, wearing a paper flower crown Maria had helped her make, seemed captivated by the open space, moving near the edge where a gentle breeze carried the mingled scent of salt air and blossoms. Standing amidst this tranquil scene, Richard turned to Maria. His usual guarded expression softened, his voice quieter than usual. "Maria," he began, the word carrying the weight of his realization. "For so long, I was afraid to feel anything deeply again, afraid of failing. But you didn't just care for Lily. You showed me how to hope again. You showed me it wasn't too late." His hand trembled slightly as he held out a small, carved wooden box. Inside lay a simple locket, engraved with his own handwriting. "Together, we build dreams." Then, shedding the last vestiges of his old self, Richard knelt, his gaze locked with hers, his voice thick with emotion. "Maria, will you marry me?" Tears welled in Maria's eyes, catching the lantern light. A soft "yes" escaped her lips, almost carried away by the breeze. And at that moment, as if sensing the shift, Lily let out a small clap, a pure sound of delight that sealed the promise of their new beginning. Is your heart melting right now? Hit the share button if you know someone who needs this story of hope. 5 years later, warmth and connection defined the Davenport home. Lily, now 12, navigated the world with newfound confidence, expressing herself clearly through both spoken words and strikingly expressive artwork. Richard, transformed from the guarded tycoon, embraced his role as a loving father and, alongside Maria, channeled their experiences into the Davenport Foundation, actively supporting families facing similar journeys. At the Foundation's bustling annual festival, Lily herself took center stage, sharing an interactive story she'd created. a testament to her own resilience. Their family's journey stands as a powerful reminder. Healing is possible. Small gestures carry immense weight, and love, patiently nurtured, can truly illuminate the path forward. Their story shows that the greatest transformations often start with simple kindness. If remarkable stories like this inspire you, please subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for joining us on this journey.